And today we have a webinar where two our colleagues who do the research in Poland will present their, I think, the most novel, the newest results on fertility of migrants from Ukraine who have settled down in Poland, either before the war or after 24th February 2022. And these are Kateryna Krakhmalova, who has studied human rights from the Central European University in Hungary, and also law at the Institute of State of Law at the National Academy of Science of Ukraine. Today, Kateryna is at University of Warsaw, and her research includes human rights of forced migrants and of internally displaced persons in Ukraine. And then we have Weronika Kloc-Nowak, who have studied at the European University Institute in Florence on the Polish emigrants and their childbearing in Italy and Great Britain. Today, she is at the University of Warsaw, where she conducts a very novel research project on fertility configuration and fertility patterns, but also intergenerational relations of migrants. So Weronika and Kateryna, you have about 40-45 minutes, and then we will organize some discussion to your presentation. The floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Agnieszka. Can you see the presentation correctly?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
So thank you for the invitation. The project, the title of today's presentation is on fertility attitudes and decisions, so acts and childbearing resulting from fertility behaviors among Ukrainian pre-24th February 2022 migrants and war refugees, and we'll present some quantitative and qualitative results of the project that I have the pleasure to be the PI of our work, but also with the contributions of Dr. Elena Owczynnikova, Dr. Agnieszka Fichel, and Nina Bojczenko. And I give the floor to Katia for the introduction.
Thank you very much, both to Weronika and for invitation. And I would like to start by saying that current active aggression of Russia against Ukraine, which has started on 24th February 2022, is actually not the first one. It's an act of more existential war, which actually lasts for about 300 years. And for those of you who are from different than Central Eastern European context and would like to know more how it all started, why there is an excellent English language resource to which we have here a link. So previous act of this war actually occurred in the year 2014 when Russia occupied parts of the eastern Ukrainian territories, so-called Donbass, and then also annexed Crimea in the south. And then there were already quite significant and unfortunately grave demographic consequences because we had flow of internal displaced persons at different times, let's say approximately 1.5 million of IDPs. And then also we had immigration from the affected regions from east and south of Ukraine, including to Poland. And this immigration was something which exacerbated to other depopulation burdens that Ukraine has been already facing even before 2014. And here in these depopulation burdens, I particularly quote the works of Professor Pirelli Harris and then Yulia Hilevich. And these two other burdens, in addition to immigration, were very low fertility and high mortality. Then also as a way of introducing the demographic consequences of the current ongoing war, meaning here from 24th February 2022, I need to say that in addition to direct civilian and also military deaths, here we need to talk about a whole continuum of different types and different severity of forced migration. What I mean here is that we need to distinguish different groups of population. So first of all, we do have children who happen to be on the territories which were occupied by Russian forces. And those children were forcefully deported and transferred to the territory of Russia. And then in many instances, their identity documents were changed. They were placed up for adoption by Russian families. Their national belonging was wiped. And this constitutes a war crime. And there is a case before the International Court of Justice, and actually already several arrest warrants issued in relation to this case. In particular, notable are 2 arrest warrants against Mr. Putin and Ms. Lyubova Belova, who is Russian Commissioner for Children's Rights. And here, why it is important and what are the numbers we're talking about? So according to the open Russian sources, here we're talking approximately about 744,000 of Ukrainian children who have been stolen like this. And this whole procedure has been going on at least from the year 2014, from that previous act of war and aggression. And we do have some information. For example, there is an article by Ukrainian author Kuleba, who says that there is an evidence that then those Ukrainian children grew up in the territory of Russia, and whenever they reach the age of 18, they can and are conscripted to Russian army and then thrown against Ukrainian one. And this way, it's actually perpetuating the whole vicious circle of war. Then another instance with forced deportations are forced deportations and transfers of adult population, Ukrainians from territories which got occupied by Russia. And here in this current episode of war, we have information coming from works, for example, of Colin on our chart, and we are talking about approximately 3.6 million of adult civilians who are actually transferred, moved this way. And the evidence which suggests that that's not actually a kind of humanitarian moving them out of the harm's way, but that's actually another war crime, is the fact that they must go through filtration camps. And for these people, there are at least 27 filtration camps like this. Then we do have another aspect of this forced migration caused by war. And we are talking about Ukrainian war refugees abroad. According to the UNHCR data, here the numbers are approximately 6.5 million people. And then also there are 2 additional important nuances and trends. So here we can talk about so-called missing women, and then also gendered immobility of men. So if you take a look at this figure on the right on our slide, which comes from the Ukrainian Center for Economic Strategy, you'll see that in the age cohorts of women and men in their 20s, 30s, 40s, we do have these thousands of women missing because mostly refugees from Ukraine are women, children, elderly, and men are the ones who are mostly in Ukraine. And currently we do have this disbalance. So in essence, for men remaining in Ukraine, there is a question whom they can at all date and create families and have children with, because these women are lacking. And finally, one of the last but not least consequences of this war is that Ukraine had estimated 0.7 TFR rate per woman for year 2022. This comes from the work of Professor Ella Lipanova from Ukraine, and that's very alarming and one of the lowest on the planet. There is one additional aspect, which is legal one, legal context of this war that I'd like also to bring closer to you. So in essence, since the introduction of martial law on 24th of February 2022, there was a limit put on the movement of men. So in essence, if they are from conscription age, from 18 to 60, because also there is mobilization going on, they, in essence, cannot leave Ukraine. And it means that they are forced there to stay. And then also we did have some Ukrainian migrant men, in essence, from Poland, who also moved to Ukraine to fight. And for them, this was also a one-way journey. And this general ban on leaving for Ukrainian men has also some exceptions. And for our project, it's especially notable and important that these exceptions are related to parenthood. So here we are talking about men who actually may be allowed to cross the border if you're talking about fathers of 3 or more dependent children, about single fathers, and then also about foster parents, adoptive parents, and alike. Here, after this brief introduction, I'd like to give the floor back to Weronika to proceed with our first part.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Katya. So, as stated in the title, our presentation is actually both about the Ukrainian refugee women and also about the fertility attitudes of pre-war migrants. So, I'll try to tell you to build a picture of the pre-war migration as a context, but first of all, numerical context for the Ukrainian refugee women, using various official statistics and registered data. So Ukrainian migration in Poland was originally a circular, largely seasonal migration, which is difficult to measure. However, after the 2014 revolution and the beginning of occupation of Eastern Ukraine, there started to arrive more and more migrants, including younger and male migrants. Some have attributed this to actually young men being brought to Poland or invited to Poland by by the generation of their mothers who had previous migration experience in Poland or were migrants in Poland. On average, in a year like 2018, it was estimated that around 1 million Ukrainians were employed in Poland during a year, but some of these people were rotating, not present in the country for the whole year. Other registered sources included, for example, social insurance, where before the year of the full-scale Russian invasion, there were 650,000 registered Ukrainian citizens. And this registration, this insurance was based mostly on the fact of being employees, sometimes self-employed. And in the structure of these insured people, we can see that almost 63% were male, and the highest share was of very young workers, like in their 20s. Other sources related to residence permits gave lower numbers. So you can already have the picture how we have various statistics which partly overlap because people can have both a residence permit and social insurance, but we cannot state precisely the full number of Ukrainian people staying in Poland. But to show you the trends, this is how the temporary residence permits issued to Ukrainians evolved over a longer period of time. You can see here precisely how the immigration starts to increase from 2014, and how since 2015 it is dominated by men. This was the picture like before the full-scale Russian invasion and before the beginning of the massive influx of war refugees. Also in this period, and that is what has actually brought or motivated me to start this whole research project, in this period we could start to observe increasing number of births to Ukrainian women in Poland. In the graph, you have in a lighter color all births to all foreign women, and the darker color is Ukrainian citizenship mothers. So you can see how the number of children born by such mothers was increasing systematically. And in 2021, it was around 2% of all births in Poland. And then for 2022, we can see the combined effect of childbearing by Ukrainian migrant women living in Poland and the refugee women who suddenly arrived to Poland. And the share of women of children born by Ukrainian mothers increased to 4.5% of all births in this year in Poland. Another motivation for the project has been the comparison of fertility patterns between Ukraine and Poland. These are countries which in the last 2 decades both had experienced periods of lowest low fertility, that is below 1.3 of TFR. And which between these countries, the main difference is the younger pattern of childbearing among Ukrainians than among Poles. So although between 2010 and 2019, you can see here how the peak fertility age gradually moved a bit further in Ukraine, still it is in younger age than in Poland, around 2 years of difference. So given these differences and increasing immigration from Ukraine to Poland, I was interested in such questions as what is the timing of fertility of Ukrainian immigrant women in Poland? And this question was inspired by French demographers studying what's the timing of fertility when we look at both age and time since arrival to the country. I intended to look at the age pattern of fertility of Ukrainian women in Poland compared to origin, and we're trying to look for explanations. There are classical hypotheses put by demographers starting from Hilkulu, which include socialization, that is, if migrants stick to the pattern of norms of fertility, including age norms and from the country where they were brought up. Maybe it's adaptation, that is convergence of the pattern of fertility, convergence to the pattern of the host society, or maybe it's self-selection, which would say that those Ukrainian young women who don't like their national pattern of early motherhood choose to migrate instead of becoming mothers at a young age, and that is why they would bear children in Poland, in the host country, at a later stage of their life course. There's also demographers' work on how fertility of migrants depends on the type of migration. And in simplification, we can say that women who arrive as family migrants, who join their partners or start marriage immediately after arrival, they have children sooner after arriving, while women who migrate independently for labor or education purposes, they rather postpone childbearing for at least a few years. And of course, there are forced migrants as a third type, and this has become important for the Ukrainians in Poland. This was practically not the case before 2022, and now has become the large part of the picture. So what is the childbearing behavior of war refugees from Ukraine in Poland, given that both this country of origin and host country have low or lowest low TFRs? And in this, with respect to this, Ukrainian war refugees are unique because, in contrast to, for example, Syrians, they come from a country with lowest low fertility at origin. So maybe they behave differently than refugees, displaced people all over the world that had been studied so far. What are the sources of data for studying the fertility of Ukrainian war refugee women? In Poland, we have the personal ID system and register. It's called PESEL. And in the classical PESEL, we have about 1.4 million Ukrainian citizens, and it is still male-dominated. But the problem with this PESEL is that it is not updated if a foreigner leaves Poland, or if the person gives no other sign of life in Poland, for example, does not have health insurance, does not pay taxes in Poland, we do not update it. So anyone who had been ever granted a PESEL number in Poland is in the register. On the other hand, it's incomplete. Some foreigners are identified in other registers but are not in the PESEL. And finally, the data is not openly published. So it's not a good data source for scholars. And then we have the PESEL-UKR register, because since the 16th of March 2022, Poland started to issue these personal ID numbers with a special UKR attribute. And this registration was part of the implementation of Temporary Protection Directive in Poland. And the data on people who have been granted this PESEL UK number have been published daily since April 2022 as an open data set on a governmental data portal. And moreover, in a very detailed way, that is on a very low level of local authority units, in single years of age for children, in 5-year age groups for adults, divided by to men and women. So a very detailed data set that we couldn't have dreamt of before for migrants in Poland. In this data set was initially cumulative, then started to be updated. So, for example, as of end of March 2024, we had around 950,000 Ukrainians in this register, and this population is dominated by women. You can see here almost 2/3 are female, and women in reproductive age between 15 and 49 are there's around 344,000 of them. So using this very detailed data where we have age structure and sex, we started to work together with Olena Owczynnikowa on looking at the scale of childbearing among these women. And here we've used and compared two numbers for children. The registered number in dark red is the number of children born in Poland in a given month, registered with this PESEL UK, so registered as war refugees upon birth in Poland. The number in yellow is our estimate, which was based on the official statistics on age-specific fertility rates in Ukraine from the pre-war period, extrapolated to 2022. And these age-specific fertility rates we've applied to the number of female refugees in a given age group present in Poland in the register at the end of each month. So we calculated the expected monthly number of births to this population of women, also using each month's share of annual births in Poland, not like just 1/12, but adjusting it slightly for seasonality. And what we can see here that for March, when the register, when we don't have the March data on the PESEL UK register, because as I said, they started to be published from April, we are very imprecise. Then on April, the registered and estimated number of children match. And since May, we can observe increasing discrepancy between the registered and estimated number of children. Our estimated number of children almost each month grows. Why is it so? It's because, as I said, the register was cumulative over this period. That means that all the women who have registered were added to it. And here in this graph, we can see the number of women in each of these 5-year age groups. I've labeled the top number that was recorded for the beginning of October. And this was the special moment since the 6th of October, the government started to update the register, that is cancel from the register the people who are absent from Poland, who have been at the date detected as absent from Poland, and then systematically anyone who would lose their war refugee status due to being absent from Poland would also be deleted from the register. So you can see from November, the number of women in each age group is either more or less stable or slightly decreasing for the women in their 30s and 40s. If we now expand our estimate of monthly births using this now updated number of women in subsequent months, our estimated number of children per month drops to below 1,000 for most months, but it's just still much above the number of newborns registered each month and given this war refugee status. So we are speaking here since November 2022 about a slightly different phenomenon, that is now the pregnancies conceived already at the times of the full-scale war. Births until end of October can be, by biological means, presumed to be mostly pregnancies conceived before the full-scale invasion. While for those births which are since November, well, these are the consequences of decisions, of behaviors of people already knowing that Ukraine has been totally subject to Russian aggression. So we still have this discrepancy between the registered and estimated expected number of children if we applied for our estimate the pre-war age-specific fertility rates. Moreover, we have data on the age of on the births by Ukrainian mothers in Poland, and now we speak about all Ukrainian citizenship mothers. Births to them by age group, by mother's age group. If we use it to divide the number of refugee children and assign these refugee children to age groups of mothers, we can try to estimate the age-specific fertility rate for the population of Ukrainian refugee women in Poland. And this is in the graph in yellow and red. You can see how it is below the age-specific fertility rates from Ukraine from before the full-scale invasion period. And we can also estimate the total fertility rate at a level of 0.6. So this total fertility rate of war refugee women in Poland would be half of the pre-war level in Ukraine, and it is even like below, but very close to the 0.7 estimate given by Libanova for the Ukrainian territory, for the population left and childbirths in Ukrainian territory. Based on this exercise, we can see that the PESEL-UK register overcovered, so stated the higher number of refugees than were actually present in Poland already from May, and the updating of the register in October was necessary. In this updated form, we see that it works as a denominator for calculating demographic indicators for the war refugees, and we can see that these demographic indicators are very low. Women don't bear as many children as they used to before the war, even though before the war it was already not low level. But during the wartime, the factors that contributed to this is the death of their partners, war trauma, separation from partners, hardship of life in Poland. We have to remember that war refugees in Poland do not receive any like monthly social benefit for the adults, only the child benefit in the long run. And also, possibly in 2022, it was important that some women were arriving with the infants that were born very soon before going their exile from Ukraine. So they already gave birth in Ukraine in January, February 2022. We could see a lot of these infants born in 2022 in Ukraine and registered as refugees in Poland. Being able to calculate these demographic indicators contributes to the forecasts of demographic impact of war refugees on the host country, and also contributes to calculating the number of potential returnees to Ukraine, because we can include the number of children born to them abroad. This type of analysis using the PESEL-UK register is a bit limited. First of all, we can already see that the refugee population is volatile. A lot of people returned, some very quickly after registering in Poland, and this mobility, further mobility of refugees depends on the war dynamics. Another limitation is the fact that women with PESEL-UK status could bear children which upon birth receive the Polish nationality if they were fathered by a Polish man, and these children will not be registered as refugees. Another fact is the change of legal status, such as unintended loss of the PESEL-UK status even if the person resides in Poland, or upgrading to another residence permit. So in general, given these limitations of the PESEL-UK database, we need to work with the official detailed birth statistics based on birth events registration and which will be more precise than this dynamic database of PESEL-UKR, which each time gives us the number of people of a given month of birth and age at the given moment. However, this database and these PESEL-UKR numbers are important because keeping the war refugees traceable in the PESEL register and also in a new type of residence permits, this is crucial for following their demographic, social, economic outcomes in Poland in all Polish administrative data sets. And now I hand over to Katya for the explanation, in-depth explanation of these phenomena.
Thank you very much. I was the person responsible for qualitative part, which I immensely enjoyed, and I'll try to convey to you why. Chronologically, it was actually the first thing we did. So we started with qualitative in-depth interviews, and there were several reasons for this. One of those reasons Weronika has already very well stated before. It was the trouble with actually getting reliable quantitative data sets, especially at the beginning, because the war is very fresh event. Then obviously pregnancy takes 9-10 months to develop and to see, let's say, the result of it. So we focused more on beliefs, intentions, decision-making process, and we knew that the data sets are yet to come. And then also there was an ethical consideration why we actually started a little bit with a delay, because we wanted to give our potential respondents time to cope, adjust psychologically, and only after 6 months, when they have been already here, we started approaching them and asking for an interview. So here you see characteristics of our 24 respondents. For interviews we did between February and June 2023, and there are 2 groups, pre-war migrants and war refugees, and they were both single and in relationships, parents and childless. Yes, so I'd like to go on, please, with the next slide. Whenever we have collected our interview data, we decided to use 3 theories to analyze it. And I'd like to explain a little bit more why actually such a choice. So first of all, some things were all the time coming up in our interviews, and these were exposure to mortality surveillance, and we looked closer into term management theory, which basically explains why at all people would have children during the war or have next child or children. Because we do have evidence from prior studies that exposure to mortality does increase desire for children, fertility rates in the short-term scenario, because it acts as a certain psychological buffer. I mean, when faced with death, people think about ways to become immortal in a way, and one of these psychological defense mechanisms is through having children. So we also know that it depends on individual psychological characteristics of a person, and then also time, stage of life in which this encounter with death happens is different for younger and for older cohorts of people in their childbearing age. And then also it's influenced by gender. Then next thing to which we used is theory of planned behavior, because we wanted to have a solid, nice framework to cover background factors, beliefs, attitudes, subjective norms of having a child, then also perceived and actual control and intention to have a child, and then to sometime in the future also maybe to see if there was an actual outcome. Then also another topic, another theme which frequently came up is a huge uncertainty connected with war as a major crisis and appending event in people's lives. In terms of huge uncertainties, we looked into narratives of the future by Weronika and collaborators, because what was already known from this theory is that actually when faced with a huge uncertainty, for people becomes more important not some kind of solid material set of things, past or the present ones, but rather the way how they envision or construct their futures. And then they also looked into how these different narratives of the future correlate with positive and negative fertility intentions. And in experiments conducted, there was actually a correlation. So basically, when people viewed future positively, they had positive fertility intention, and negatively, negative. So after doing that, we reached three main findings. So first of all, what changes and what is important for fertility intentions and their potential outcomes is that being with or without their partner during the war is very uncertain. People largely lose control over it. And here, in terms of those who don't have a partner, it's difficult for them to date. You already know this missing women actually issue, and then men who are immobile in essence. And then also for those who do actually have a partner, we are talking about a massive amount of forced separations. We have men, but also women in the military, in Ukrainian army. That's about 1/5 who are female service members. Then also we have people who could have moved, for example, because their parents have 3 more children, but they stay in Ukraine to volunteer. We also have obviously women who are now abroad. So first main conclusion, main finding is that opportunities to have a child or children during the war are limited. But then we do have another also effect, and these are forced reunifications. You might remember from our background and introduction that there was quite substantive Ukrainian migration to Poland before the war. So we did have those mostly Ukrainian male migrants working in Poland. And then we had a partner, mostly women, who became refugees and joined them in Poland, even though previously they were not considered such an option. And in some cases, it also resulted in conceiving a child. So the next finding is that during the war, we do have this very interesting duality of beliefs that having a child is important, and then this importance comes into two conflicting, let's say, aspects, individual and collective. One of our interviewees, pre-war migrant woman with one child, said that I think this is necessary, needed, both for the person himself, herself, and for the state as well. And we understand that for the development of the country and the economy, a new generation must be born. And then we had another refugee woman, currently childless, who was conflicted and explained this individual and collective dimension. Individually, if I had a child during the war, it would be very difficult. Collectively, we know how many people have died in Ukraine and that Ukraine should give birth to as many Ukrainians as possible. So the question arises whether the collective issue should outweigh my individual one, because Ukraine must survive. And then also another conclusion, another finding that we came across is that actually, thanks to in-depth interviews, we've seen that narratives of the future are not as simple as they were in theoretical experiments. Because in experiments conducted both in Norway and Italy, people usually were presented with a very clear-cut, let's say, positive and negative narratives, and then there were positive and negative intentions and correlation between them. But in real life, people, especially when we're talking about war, its uncertainty, these narratives are often unemotional, very matter-of-fact, neutral, and or conditional. People say, if this, then this, if something else, or if such solution is implemented, then, for example, we decide. And then also fertility intentions are ambivalent, fluctuating, and changing. And actually, this conclusion gives us hope, and I think it's a very valid, important policy recommendation, because already knowing that what matters for people the most are positive, let's say, narratives of the future. It's not even material things, though obviously they also do play a role. It's maybe a certain room for Ukrainian policymakers to persuade those people being on the age that actually Ukraine can be a good place to have children. So from this, I would like also to illustrate to you a little bit how these conflicted narratives and intentions look like. So one example is for a refugee woman with 2 children. who says it's hard to plan anything now when the war is going on. I'm thinking about many things, whether to stay in Poland or not, whether to go to Ukraine if the war ends tomorrow immediately or stay here for some time. Where will they, my children, be better off? And then we have a refugee woman with one child who says that she actually had intention to have another one, but now she has different criteria. The war, of course, has had a dramatic impact. You change your life completely. Your apartment, your finances, your stability, the world in general changes. Yes, I thought about it, about having more children. Wanted to, but now I have different criteria for myself. I wonder if I have enough strength and energy. I put 40 as the last limit if the war ends. After summarizing our analysis, we actually came up with some recommendations for both Ukrainian policymakers and foreign governments who would wish to support the Ukrainian population. This basically adverse demographic consequences of the war and counter them. First of all, obviously, for Ukraine, the better tactical medicine we have, the more deaths and injuries on the battlefield are prevented, the more potential parents and partners will be there. Then also, because we do have this economic migration and now war migration, very important becomes protecting ties with loyal to Ukraine, Ukrainians abroad, the diaspora question. And then in lieu of these narratives of the future that I just talked about, then what is important is to support these positive narratives of Ukraine as a good state, a good place to have children. There are already, even though Ukraine is at war, yes, it's true that economically the situation is very difficult, but we do have, even at this time, some very interesting, important developments, for example, related to military parenting, related to the fact that we do have a state program which sponsors in vitro and, let's say, preservation of genetic materials for male military service members. We do have a program about municipal nannies and different things like that. And then in terms of recommendations to foreign governments, then obviously the first and foremost, it's military aid, because the more advanced technologies without limitations we get, then the more people can be spared. And that's the only, for all types of weapons, we need people to operate them, and nobody's going to fight for Ukraine except Ukrainians, so that's number one. Then, because in terms of these forced transfers and deportations of children, we are talking about war crimes going on, then it is possible to counter this war crime and also to help Ukraine bring those stolen children back. And there were very good, fruitful attempts of third states getting involved and actually helping to facilitate the process. And then also the third recommendation in terms of Ukraine reconstruction permit. So in essence, there were 6 options. What happens with Ukrainian war refugees after the temporary protection ends? Now we do have development from this week, from Tuesday actually, that it was prolonged at the European Union level until the year 2026, until March. However, at large, we know that certainty is important for demography, for childbearing, plans. And then also it's important for all other types of legal and psychological reasons. So what we propose, what we think is the best option is the idea proposed by Ludwig Asher of 10-year Ukraine reconstruction permit. That would be a residence permit allowing these refugee Ukrainians to keep ties both with the host countries they now got accustomed to, and travel to Ukraine, reconnect with family members, potentially their partners, or like even getting married, maybe giving birth, and in this way also supporting Ukraine. I believe I need to wrap up here and again give the floor to Weronika.
Yeah. So you can see how studying the attitudes of both war refugees, but also pre-war migrants from the country which is now affected by the war, and these women, these people also experience the fact that their lives and their properties and their families back in Ukraine had been affected by the war. You can see how studying them may contribute also to developing theoretical ideas, I believe, especially in terms of the complexity of narratives of the future in such an unstable situation. And with on this note, I would like to thank again Agnieszka, Olena, Nina for the contribution. I would like to acknowledge the funding by National Science Center Poland. And if you like to follow our project, please follow me on Twitter, follow the hashtag Migvert, or visit the project website, for which you can see here both the address and the QR code, which will lead you there. Okay, thank you, and we'll welcome all your questions, comments, and opinions on this issue.
Thank you, Weronika and Kateryna. Up to my knowledge, this is the first and maybe so far the only quantitative analysis of fertility of Ukrainian war migrants abroad. And I'm not aware of any this kind of analysis elsewhere. Maybe I will open the floor for this for the discussion. So please raise hands if you want to ask a question. I will just maybe have a small question on my own. Are you aware of any qualitative analysis about fertility intentions and realizations in any host country concerning Ukrainian refugees? Now I can see that Mateusz has a question, so maybe Mateusz, please.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. My question is perhaps not directly referred to this presentation, but I'm wondering about one issue. Do we, since the presentation is, what I understand from the narrative, that the births are somehow allocated to the migrants that are registered in the PESEL-UKR that database, do we possibly know anything about a sort of, I would call it, birth tourism? So only temporary coming to Poland to give birth in, say, safe place from the citizens, from women from Ukraine, that would probably a bit inflated the births if we wanted to match it with the people who are here at least for some time. Thank you.
Any other question from anyone?
Okay, we have Lily in the chat.
Two questions from Lily. How long does refugee status last in Poland? Could that affect somehow the numbers? And the second one, have you or do you plan to account for structural differences between pre-war and refugee migrants in the models? And three, did some similarities or common attitudes among pre-war and refugee migrants also emerge?
Okay, so if I may start answering, I think one of Lily's questions would also be more to Katya. Agnieszka, starting with your question, no, I'm not aware of any other qualitative analysis focusing on fertility and fertility plans in any other host country. I believe that such a question such issues may come up in general in any studies where refugees are asked about their plans for the future, because as far as I know, in many countries, people ask them about their plans, the length of stay planned in a given country. All I know on quantitative terms is that, for example, in Czechia, the number of Ukrainian children increased suddenly to over 3,000 in 2022, while it was below 1,000 in the previous years. So it also reflects childbearing by a suddenly increased number of Ukrainian women. To Mateusz Łakome's question about birth tourism, here we have data from about children who have been registered in Poland as war refugees. So not only their birth certificate is in Poland, but the parents have applied for the PESEL status. As regards the birth tourism, there is a special statistics in the Polish Statistical Office tables where we have number of children born by foreign women who are not resident in Poland. Before the scale was more or less like 6,000 children born by Ukrainian women in Poland, and let's say 50 children born or 20 children born by Ukrainian women who are not resident in Poland. So these are births by a mother who does not have an address in Poland. So this birth tourism would probably be captured by the second statistic. However, well, theoretically, we cannot exclude people registering that in a fictitious way that they reside in Poland, that their child is in Poland to get social assistance, while in fact these people, for example, reside in the western borderland close to the Polish border, and theoretically they could visit Poland frequently enough to pretend to the social welfare institutions that they live in Poland. This is hard to detect, but moreover, we have a different problem: a double registration of Ukrainian births in Poland and in Ukraine. That is because the Ukrainian citizens who do have a child in Poland they have different strategies for registering the child with the Ukrainian authorities. And here I think I'll pass to Katya to explain these ways. And then if you could then turn to afterwards to Lily Apolata's question.
Sure. Thank you very much. So yes, I also would like to chime in relation to this question. Because first of all, because we had very small number of respondents, I cannot go into details here, not to expose people. But in general, I believe, like from evidence information I have, it's rather not birth tourism that pregnant women come to Poland to give birth. It's rather that sometimes when we're talking about the situations of let's say forced reunifications, when, for example, they actually wanted to live in Ukraine and came to Poland to reunite with partners because of war, then I do observe, if that's not maybe reliable and huge numbers, but I see that actually people do come back to Ukraine after some time with these newborns. So that's one. Then also what Weronika started to talk about, that's really very important, that actually when a baby Ukrainian one is born in Poland, there are three ways how this little one had become a Ukrainian citizen. So basically, they can register a child via go to a consulate, and then basically there is an option to go to Ukraine if, for example, mother is more mobile, they're close to the border. And then also there is an option to do so via, I believe it's called state enterprise document. So there are three ways like this. And therefore, it's not possible to check for all the overlaps which might happen and to avoid this double registration in some instances. And then I'd like to turn here to questions of
Okay, thank you for the answer, very enlightening, thanks.
And here the first question is, how long does a refugee status last in Poland? Could that affect somehow the numbers? So in essence, refugee status, temporary protection beneficiary in this case is very much tied to whole architecture of temporary protection. So we do have the temporary protection directive, and basically it's prolonged once in a while. Then, in addition, it needs to be implemented at national level. So in situation with Poland, we do have the special law and it's from 12th of March of 2022. And then it prolongs the opportunity for legal stay and work and some other, issues for Ukrainians. Usually it a little bit lags behind this time period, which is at the European level, which is understandable. So it first European level and then Poland implements it. But in principle, it's basically once it started, it just lasts. So basically, the people who arrived, who applied, who said that they would like to use temporary protection in Poland, they do have this status. Once the Poland special law is being prolonged, their status is automatically prolonged. They don't need to do anything specific about it, just monitor developments in legislation that it's not cancelled, it's actually prolonged, and then they just stay and work legally here in Poland. So I would say probably no, it should not affect the numbers, except that in some situations when this prolongation is done, let's say at the last moment, I know that some people might panic and they go back to Ukraine even if it's not very safe because they are uncertain of their future, let's say in Poland. Would it be possible for them to stay or no? But I also understand and acknowledge that it's difficult also for Polish legislators to prolong it. There is a process how it's being done. Then another questions 2 and 3. Differences between pre-war migrants and refugee migrants in the models, similarities or common attitudes. Here, that's also something which our IGIs have shown a lot, and I think that's very peculiar and interesting for this Ukrainian migration in Poland, is that we do have people who are pre-war migrants and people who are post-war. However, it's all very, very, very much intertwined. And by this being intertwined, I mean two things. First of all, we do have quite a lot of mixed couples. One person is a pre-war migrant, another person is war refugee. So in these couples, they both are parents or potential parents, so we cannot, separate them and say whose attitudes one over whose. And then, even though obviously we do know the status of each, and we can look into interviews and whether their narratives somehow differ, but they still talk it all together. And then also we did observe, and it's traceable in our interviews, that even if you're talking about people who are, let's say, purely a couple consisting of 2 pre-war migrants who were in Poland, and then the war breaks out, and they stay in Poland, still the war has affected them. In terms of our exposure to mortality, there are different levels how someone can be exposed to mortality, and also different ways how this exposure influences people. For example, when someone was lucky not to be a refugee, but come to Poland before the war, but this person has family members, or let's say has experienced the war in 2014, for them still it bears a mark and has an impact. So I would say that probably these people, they are not separated in our study, and I actually believe they probably should not be because of this connection.
Mm-hmm. Moreover, in the qualitative part, we could see how people, for example, coming from different regions of Ukraine had slightly different, let's say, fertility norms, or experience different levels of social control over their fertility from their neighbors, their home communities. And from this, and also from the regional differentiation of fertility patterns in Ukraine, we know that for our fine-tuning the number, the estimates, we would need to have the origin of the war refugees and origin of the migrants to see how what's the share of people from urban, rural areas, people with different and regional differences, people from Eastern Ukraine versus Western Ukraine. We don't have this in the PESEL-UK register. Possibly this could be extracted when the people apply for the new residence card or residence permit on a fast track for the war refugees, and there at least their place of birth in Ukraine could be recorded, and this. If such data were given to analysts, this could allow us to differentiate them by origin and possibly by the fertility patterns at origin. So this could be done. We can't do it so far. And last but not least, if we talk about the very age structure of the migrants and war refugees, we actually don't have as precise as age structure for migrant women, for the pre-war women, which complicates doing a similar analysis for all Ukrainian women in Poland.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have a question or a comment? I have just a comment that for sure the fact that people from Ukraine return one day to Ukraine is in the vital interest of the nation to survive. And when I'm studying the mobilization of diaspora and civil movements of diaspora, I can see that this message referring to this vital interest and solidarity with the country and going back one day and helping to rebuild the country is the main message of the Ukrainian diaspora. And you can see it also among this simple, let's say it's like the simple refugees who are not so involved in social movement. However, we can see that as the longer the war lasts, the prospect for return will decline because children start to go to schools. And for instance, Poland remained the only hosting country where Ukrainian children were not obligated to attend schools. And this changes in September 2024. All other host countries in the European Union obligated Ukrainian children to attend schools in the hosting countries. So we can see that these prospects remain more and more pessimistic, which together with this extremely low fertility of Ukrainian women remaining abroad, makes this whole picture even more and more pessimistic.
Mm-hmm. And if we think about having children abroad, this may act like in two directions, because on the one hand, this may be something like, okay, temporarily I'm offered safe living conditions in the host country. I have a child here, and then with this child, hopefully I will go back to Ukraine when it's safe. But on the other hand, it may be one of the anchors in the host country,
of
that
course.
you like 1 or 2 years pass, you find childcare for the child, and that kind of lowers your propensity to go back. Another issue is the question of informal family care, especially in the first year of children's life. It's often practiced, and traditionally both in Poland, also in Ukraine, like the role of grandmothers is important. So whether the grandmothers are also war refugees together with the younger generations in the host country, and they can offer childcare, or maybe the grandmothers have not gone into exile because, for example, they've chosen to stay in Ukraine, or they had some even older dependent family members who were not mobile. Therefore, they stayed in Ukraine. And in such a situation, we can imagine that a war refugee woman who plans to have a child may be actually attracted back to Ukraine due to the availability of family care. So it's very complex, and these issues of who's with them in Poland, we studied in a survey. We have an online survey going on, or actually reaching its end last few days, I believe, of the survey on an online panel of Ukrainians in Poland. These are both war refugees and pre-war migrants, although we now see that this year's sample is already dominated in around 80% by the war refugees. But we plan to learn from the survey a bit more about how these trajectories of combining migration or exile with family dynamics, how they intertwined, and when, in which period the children were born, and also what the intentions are. Because as you can already see here, this is the context of very low fertility. So we don't talk about the difference between 3 and 5 children or like big numbers. We rather talk about how any factor, any hope for the future can maybe switch the balance to people having 1 versus 0 children, or maybe having the second child that I have dreamt of postponed, and then the war came, and should they postpone it even further, or is there a time limit to postponing? As one of the quotes that Kateryna has presented to us, this woman who now waits, her time limit is the age of 40, and whether if the war will end by the time she reaches her personal limit of 40. This is this type of reasoning. So very tiny differences, but on the scale of the whole society, they can make a difference, especially for rebuilding the Ukrainian population.
Kateryna?
Yeah, if I may, I also have like 2 really small comments, but I think it's important in terms of, like my biggest personal surprise was that sometimes like other respondents, they were giving us different solutions. Like if this would exist, then we would decide. And some of the solutions, actually, they are already there. It's just that people don't have enough knowledge. So I think that's what we are doing here at this seminar. We are disseminating knowledge, but also this knowledge should go further. For example, some people were talking about childcare and about not having informal childcare and how it is important. But we do have this program in Ukraine of municipal nannies. It just needs to be advertised more. Or, for example, we do also have something a little bit similar to what, for example, people in Finland have as a baby package. And it is possible to receive the baby package from Ukrainian state for Ukrainian migrants who do have a baby abroad. They just need to apply for it and they can have it. So little things like this, which shows that actually there are solutions, the state cares, just advertise them more, and then maybe those numbers will be different.
Okay. All right, so please keep us updated, because I can see that the survey will give many answers to the questions that we cannot answer right now, but I can see that this is very much work still ongoing, and you will have some more data about fertility, intention, and behaviors. Thank you very much. I stop recording.